Welcome back to Work On It Wednesdays here with my host Dillan. And Dillan couldn't resist. Got a little shot here of the promo graphic of Work On It Wednesdays. We're going to be coming at you on a daily or a weekly basis every Wednesday to help you work on your business and not in it, as Michael Gerber says. So got a picture of one of the little ones cross-eyed working an excavator. But man, does that not resonate a little bit with the employee chaos that is happening right now in pretty much all of North America? We've got a compounding issue. We've got employees that don't want to work up. They feel entitled, or like little Rory here, maybe they're just not doing what they should be doing on the job. And in addition, the government in most areas, in most states, have basically a unemployment bonus that's encouraging workers not to come to work and continue to suck off unemployment when the job market is wide open. And there's plenty of jobs in the service industry that are playing really well. So I don't know about in Canada, Dylan, but in the States right now, I'm telling you, I've gone into Walmart and there is job signs for $25 to stock shelves. Arby's, one of the fast food joints, is offering a $600 or $700 sign-on bonus. And McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, you name them, they've got signs, they've got opportunities. Tim Hortons, I know a little north of the border, I like my Timmy Hoes. And my Munchkins or my donut holes there. They've even got some crazy things going on here south of the border of Canada. So what we're talking about today is how do we go out and create systems to recruit, train, and onboard employees? And I know one of the biggest failures in my business, Dylan, was when I got employees in, hard enough to find them, we failed miserably at the first impression. We would literally throw them out in the field in the early days. Forget about, PPE, personal protective equipment. We just like, hey, here's your job. Let's see what you can do, and hope they floated and like they lasted. You can't do that anymore. We're competing with Walmart, the all different franchises, big box stores, fast food chains for these employees. So it's a blessing. It's a blessing just to be able to get them in the door and hire them. But man, what I'm seeing in the service industry right now is people are failing miserably. And they're losing the employees they fought and paid so much to get because the first impression and the onboarding and the systems are not there. And the worst thing is, man, if you forget to get your payroll documents filled out or your tax documents and you don't end up paying the person on the first week when they should be getting paid, they're gone because they got another 100 opportunities knocking on the door. So, Dylan, I appreciate you joining me. I know you got a ton of knowledge on how to actually go out and tackle these problems right from lead acquisition or maybe kind of like a lead acquisition, but we're going to try to get that employee application, very similar to taking a sales funnel and dropping it on its side. That's how we're going to tackle it, I have a feeling. So if possible, can you give me your screen here and I'll get this up and we'll kind of dive right into this.
Yeah. Let me share out this screen here and we'll get going. I have like so many tidbits to add into this conversation as we go along because I've made definitely my fair share of mistakes as we were growing super quick. Exactly what you said, right? People would show up on day one and I'm like, oh, you are starting this week. Nice to see you. Or who the hell's that guy? I think we've all been there and say, well, go with our best, most experienced crew leader and he's going to show you the way.
Kind of weird that most experienced crew leader probably is not the best trader. So we're going to touch on this a little bit today with the employee video training series. Most important topic I think we've hit in months because the labor market, well, it sucks. There's really no way around it. So
for sure. And before we jump in here, like a lot of people are just giving up on the concept. They're thinking like we can't compete against these Walmarts or Amazon, whoever, who might have like a 1 to 2 week hand holding training period where, lawn care and home cleaning industry, you just can't afford to do that or so it seems. But if you can figure out this piece to the puzzle, I mean, you've solved your business growth problems and you're going to explode past, the next competitor that you might have. So I just want to stress the importance of not just brushing it to the side and saying the labor market's crappy. There's nothing we can do. It's just the way that it is. There are some things that you can do to actually move the needle and put yourself in a better position.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So we've kind of got this flow chart here, and I think one of the repeating themes here on Work On It Wednesday with the SimpleGrowth team, Dillan and I, and we've got a team about 15 or 16 people now on the SimpleGrowth team full time. So it's not just Dillan and I, but Dillan and I have raised our hand because we both have scaled 7-figure businesses. We've dealt with these issues. We've made the mistakes that are made, that can be made. And we probably got lucky on a couple. We didn't. But we really want to go in and talk about recruiting, training, and onboarding these processes. And that reoccurring theme is organize, automate, and dominate. So how do we organize the process from this flow chart? How do we automate it? And then how do we go out and dominate? And one thing I recommend is, unlike one of my competitors that actually sent a car into my employee parking lot to go out and try to steal and recruit my employees, there's a better way to do it. We need to go out and try to figure out if it's English or Spanish speaking. We're going to organize this process. We're going to automate. We're going to dominate through online and automated domination, and through some different grassroots ideas that we'll talk about. But don't be that guy or girl that goes to your competitor's parking lot. It just doesn't end well. I'll leave it at that. So, Dillan, with no delay, let's jump in. We got a lot of stories to share, I got to bet.
Yeah, wow, this could be great. Okay, so picture the top of the funnel. Just like you have your lead top of the funnel, we got to have tons of leads coming in. Well, you need to have tons of applicants coming in. Basically, what we recommend is you need to have a regimented application form, right? This isn't just for the big national franchises. You, even as a smaller 1 or 2 person business, up to 100 employee business, you should have a very, very standardized, thorough application form. And it's not good enough just to have this on a contact or employment page on your website. Right, you need to be putting this a link to an application form in places like Indeed, Facebook, basically anywhere, ZipRecruiter, wherever this might be, and that's going to be the top of your funnel to allow everybody to apply to your company. But then the information is coming in a standardized way where you're not just have like a name and maybe their education history like Facebook has. You need to know more, right? If you're going to be having, let's say, 1,000 people apply to your business, well, when you start thinking about a lot of numbers like that, you need to be able to dwindle those numbers down into a manageable amount. So you need to know things like, are we only hiring people that have a driver's license? Because if so, that's got to be one of the first things that we're asking, what experience they have. Maybe we're only looking for people that have a certain amount of references, right? Things like that need to be ingrained so that you can really dwindle this list of potentially 1,000 down to maybe 250 applicants that are actually worthwhile looking. At least for me, our shop was not near a bus route. So we needed people that had a driver's license, even if they weren't a crew leader, because if they didn't have a driver's license and their mom was giving them a ride to work, when she can't give them a ride to work, they weren't coming to work, right? So that's kind of the top of the funnel there. But people could come in and apply to your office. They could walk in and say, hey, are you guys hiring? That happened all the time with us, at least. So we wanted to basically have a centralized place where we're holding all these applications instead of just on Indeed and Facebook and all these places where all that applicant info is essentially now in like 10 different databases. And you don't really have a database if you have 10 different databases, right? You need a centralized place to be able to pull this information, which we'll get to a bit later on. Does that all make sense, Mike?
Makes complete sense. And one of the things we talk about on a lot of the videos is for like customer acquisition, there's 2 or 3 different types of lists. There's a list that you borrow, there's a list that you pay for, and there's a list that you own. So literally you're paying for or borrowing that list on these other platforms. So the key is to be able to take that lead or that applicant and drive them in, whether it's through an English or Spanish form. So we're going to recommend, just like we built out here in this diagram here, is that landing page or that application online on a landing page or in the office are going to be English and street Spanish. So a lot of times people are like, well, the English application doesn't really work in my market. Most of the people that apply are Hispanic and they speak Spanish. Well, it makes sense. So what we've done here is we're lifting the hood of what we've already pre-built with content and questions already that can be customized. But if you're building this yourself, then obviously run with these ideas and build it yourself. But if you're looking for a solution, we're actually showing you exactly what we've built and how we've built this fully automated system. So we've got English and Spanish, and like you said, Dylan, they're coming into our software, our CRM, and they're tagged up and bucketed as applicants through this process. Now we own that list, and you're going to get to later how we can go in and work that list and nurture them and eventually create a virtual bench that we can sort through. But no, you nailed it, man. So what happens once they're in the software and they've actually filled out this online application?
That's a great point. So we need this to be an automated process. Any part that is relying on a person to kind of keep this process moving along is going to be a little bit of a bottleneck. I will say too, like, you got to keep the top of your funnel open. A lot of people have a job application, it gets filled, and then they close the funnel. When really you could be attracting people, even if you don't necessarily have that immediate need. I know, we talk about this all the time, but start to stack your virtual bench of just bringing everybody in that you can 24/7, right? You might have a full staff one week and then 2 people leave the next week, right? So this is what's going to keep that lead flow coming in, just like you would on the marketing side of things.
And that's the key to success, Dylan. So a lot of people have probably seen some of the videos that I did with Jonathan Potoshnik of the Lawn Care Millionaire. So Lawn Care Millionaire was right behind this. And this was something we talked about, creating and stacking that virtual bench. So we're going to go out and interview at least 2 to 3 times a week for every position in the company, including the business owner themselves. That's actually how I found my replacement about 1.5 years, 2 years too early than I actually needed him. But the idea is we're going to go in and look for all those positions every week, several times a week, and we're going to stack that virtual bench. And eventually we're going to show you how to sort through and grab those most qualified applicants based on a rating. But the idea is when you go in to find someone that you need, if you start looking when you need them, it's too late. And just like you said, Dylan, like sometimes our team members get a little complacent. So I used to love going down to the shop when I was down there and saying, hey, Paul that ran the company, I'm going to be busy in the next 2-3 hours today. I've got interviews all lined up today. And the guys have kind of started looking around. Oh, wait a minute, we're fully staffed. What's he doing? Mm-hmm. So once again, it puts you in the power play, in the position. So when someone doesn't show up and the other crew leader blackmails you for a raise because they got to work by themselves, that guy might get to Friday. But he's definitely not getting to Monday because I'm going to go back into my qualified labor pool and pull out those qualified applicants and start working that list. So we're going to create a list of employees before you ever need them. So when that lead is there, we got them. So now that we've got them in that system, Dylan, and they've gotten through that qualification process, what happens when somebody in the office is notified that we have a hot new applicant?
Yeah, so that qualification process can be automatic, right? We're only looking at people that hit a certain metric. And then once that metric has been hit, then there's kind of two things you can do. Either that task is getting assigned to someone specific in the office who's there. It's their responsibility to contact that lead, essentially is what it is, and set up an interview if you do in-person interviews. A lot of people, though, are switching to kind of like the Calendly method, where you are having a virtual interview. Just because people don't show up for interviews sometimes, right? So you can kind of stack interviews back to back to back on a Friday afternoon if it's all virtual, which I know people love, just having a full calendar once a week to have those interviews. So that's going to be your task so that no legitimate employee applicant ever gets missed in the pipeline here. And you're talking to every single one of those who could be potentially a good hire. Right, so that's kind of the first step right here in the online application process.
And Dylan, in that process, I'm assuming in this automated process, we're probably going to send some automated reminders to the applicant saying, hey, your interview is at this date and time in a week, this date and time tomorrow. And it gives us the ability, if they're going to opt out and not show up, hopefully they give us a courtesy that they're not going to show up. That would happen a lot in my company in New York when we automated this, because people would just sign up for interviews just to get unemployment. But a lot of them actually had the courtesy to say, hey, I'm not going to show up. So what you're doing, you're buying your time back through that automation. And in that part as well, at least in my company, and the way we've automated some of this in SimpleGrowth is you could have qualifications once they get through the main qualifications. So if they're not a pre-interview ranking of an A and B, if you have A, B, and C, the C's never get the interview, but the A's and B's do get the interview with the reminder. So I'm assuming the next step now, we actually get them on this online or in-person interview. And this is kind of my favorite part when we kind of have those 5 or 6 standardized questions where we're asking the applicant. So we have a non-biased comparison. So we can rank them with the A, B, and C ranking. And what we do inside the software is create the ability for your office to go in and say, if I need some employees, give me all my A applicants, say, from the last 10 days. And now you've got a list or a labor pool qualified to go and actually go out and hire from when it's time to hire. So the idea here is that we're stacking that virtual bench and we're using your software to create a qualified labor pool or database that we can sort. So once again, we get blackmailed by that guy or girl on Friday because they got to work by themselves because their team member didn't show. we can replace them, or if we have a spike in sales, we can go out. And where this really came into play, Dylan, in my business is one of the guys locally his kid had some really bad health issues, unfortunately, and he had to leave town to go get medical attention for the rest of the year for this child. So instead of leaving his customers high and dry, he literally gave us all his clients on a Thursday or Friday, and that following Monday, we grew by 25%. So you may be looking at it, how did you actually scale that? Because most of his employees didn't come with it. They left. But we were able to work that qualified database, and come Monday or Tuesday, we were fully staffed with about a 25% increase in sales overnight that was unexpected. But if we had never had that qualified database, Dylan, there's no way we would have been able to do that. Our current clients would have suffered, and the new clients would have fell apart. So I know I'm kind of going a little crazy here, but I'm passionate about this because this is what we lived, and this was part of the process. But along that interview process and ranking, any other comments or questions around that? How we drive that automated process?
Yeah, so I took two notes as you were talking there. Two things. So I know a lot of people have great communication, hopefully, with their clients, but they have poor communication with their employees and then their applicants. So if you are really kind of hurting for employees, right? You need a ton of employees. There's high turnover, right? Start to think of, are you even talking to these leads that you maybe didn't hire? Are you expressing to them why you can't hire them? Maybe they don't have a license, or maybe they don't have lawn care experience in your, or home cleaning experience, whatever industry you're in. But if you have the bandwidth, it might be worth that extra second to say, hey, unfortunately, we're not hiring you, which we handle in our SimpleGrowth automation. Yeah, we do like to be upfront about that. But add in a little something else and tell them why, unfortunately, you can't hire them today. It doesn't mean you never hire them. And that's going to make those C applicants that you were talking about, Mike, actually feasible in the future. You might actually be able to get them to come and work for you. If you just completely blow them off and they're like, well, this company never got back to me, that's going to leave a pretty sour taste in their mouth. And they're probably never going to come and work for you.
Very similar to client acquisition. Like, if we lose an estimate, you still want to continue to nurture them and upsell them. So we're going to kind of grow that bench. Maybe they're going back to school. Maybe they're doing something else, and then they're ready. So we definitely want to have that communication. Want to give a big shout out to Dave Voynia as well. SimpleGrowth client says, Dave says, sounds awesome. What's the cost, and does your team set it up? Dave, absolutely. So what we're really trying to do is be in the abundance mindset and open up the hood of how we do it. But absolutely, this is a fully built out, automated employee recruiting, training, and onboarding system that is set up by the SimpleGrowth team. So there's different levels. So we're happy to reach out to Dillan here and myself, and we can get you some pricing offline. But it's a turnkey system that starts with the application and drives through this whole process. And actually, it's going to include some video training. So we'll get into that. But Dillan, I appreciate you diving into that nurture part. But then this is where in my opinion, this is where it falls apart. We've got this new hire. Cool. They're going to show up, hopefully, and it's going to be magical. They're just going to do the thing. But if there's a process in place, and now it doesn't include the business owner or manager, this is huge. So the welcome email, welcome to Callahan's Lawn Care. Here's what you expect. Here's some indoctrination, our mission, vision, values. So what we found when I started to become an absentee owner at Callahan's, Dylan, was that the guys, the girls that were leaving, eventually it started getting a little ugly. I'm like, why are these guys leaving? So I asked a couple of them in the exit interview, like, hey, was it the guy running the business? Was it the company? Was it the pay? What's the deal here? Why are we leaving? Well, they're like, yeah, the company's great. We can get behind that. The pay is really good, better than most places, but that's all it is. It's a paycheck. We don't mind the guy running the business, but it's a paycheck, and that's all it is. So what we did is we flew out to Arizona, spent about $25,000 to figure out how to drive out a mission, vision, values. So what we figured out is our culture indoctrination was lacking. So we built this into the automation where you can plug in, and we've given you some framework of kind of how to do this. But we're going to talk about mission, vision, values. And your millennial workers and Generation Z here, they are going to be more adaptive to culture. So once you hit their basic needs, and trust me, I didn't believe this, after you hit their basic financial needs, they are looking for something else. Are you doing community service? What do you guys stand for? What do you do? And in our company, one of the examples is we donated snow plowing to a veteran every year. So we talked about it. We had videos of it. We showed them. And this is what we stand for. And one of our core values is we do what we say we'll do. So as you're doing some of the interviews, you may want to include some of the standardized interviewing in the automation, whether you do it yourself or with us, is we ask this, how do you feel about when someone says they're going to call you back and they don't call you back? Applicant says, man, I absolutely hate that. I hate when people commit to something, they don't do it. Bingo, man, light comes on. That is an instant alignment to those core values. We do what we say we'll do. And this person is aligning to that. So now we're looking for a cultural fit. But once we built the culture, indoctrination, the mission, vision, values in the automation right off the bat, it was done the same exact way. So my mission, vision, values, and my culture started to look like Paul or whoever else was actually onboarding people. It wasn't what we had. So it's a standardized indoctrination. But what we found is we were getting 3 to 5 years out of most of our employees then with the indoctrination, the alignment to the culture, where we'd get maybe 1, 2, 3 years at best out of most employees. And we've almost doubled our lifetime tenure of our employees, so that you got to figure the training and the learning costs have gone down significantly. So what you've got here from top to bottom in that flow chart is we've got a way to pre-sort out with standardized questions. We rank them A, B, and C. And then you go back in your software and you look A, B, and C with or without a driver's license. They hire them. There's a hire process and there's a no hire process. Like Dillan said, hire process indoctrinates and it gets them in the system. In addition, it's going to go out and do all your tax document collection and your payroll document collection. So your payroll and tax document collections and your indoctrination, your core mission, vision, values go out to 3 attempts. So after the third and final attempt, your admin or somebody in the office, depending on the setting of the automation, is going to get a notice saying, hey, Jim didn't fill out his payroll documents. Well, at this point, if Jim's been up to this point, he's probably not a good fit. If he can't fill out the paperwork to get paid, he's probably not going to follow your standardized operating procedure. So what we're doing is once we hire them, before we train them, we're actually screening them out a second time so we don't waste time. And now through that process, the week before work, the day before work, and throughout that process, they're getting different communications, letting them know where to show up for work, when to show up, what to expect on the first day. So we're creating a first impression before they actually get to the first day that's significantly better than anybody else in the market. And that's kind of that orange column going down there in the middle. So that is the onboarding and kind of indoctrination process. So before we get to the green part where I think the real magic happens, where we kind of create your own little franchise without franchise fees, Dillan, what else am I missing there? Because I know I'm missing something in there.
I don't know if you necessarily missed anything. I just kind of want to highlight that it almost goes back to the marketing that we were talking about earlier. What you mentioned about the mission, the vision, and the values and all that was it's essentially brand loyalty, right? Like just like you have brand loyalty with your customers and that's why they stay with you. Well, you almost have brand loyalty if you take it above just a paycheck that they're getting, maybe slightly above minimum wage for. If you take it above that into an actual culture where they want to come and work, think of some of those bigger companies where people are dying to work there, right? If you can make it a mini version of that, you essentially have the brand loyalty built in, and that's going to cause those people to stay there for maybe not their entire lives, but 5-10 years potentially, right? And that goes a long way.
Yeah, so I think this is the part that really excites me. If the front end has it, the back end is really pretty cool. So this is where if you want to become an absentee owner, or you just want to create standardized procedures and systems that doesn't require you as a business owner manager to be there every day, every time a new hire is brought in, or you don't want to have to be able to go out and physically train them yourself. What we've done is we've taken a 2-pronged approach here. So depending on the software, we actually have 36 videos pre-built for you with training and testing for office workflow. We literally take it from lead acquisition through billing, scheduling, and everything else in between with testing. So what we've done is basically so if you're doing this yourself, this is the process that we took. So we're literally going to go in and put an office admin, either existing or new, through this training. So we're going to standardize our office workflow. So what should happen happens every time without the business owner having the babysitter manage it. And every time we bring in a new admin, we drive them through that same process. So it's the same exact process standardized. Now, that worked out so well in my business, Callahan's Lawn Care. What we said was, well, we're really struggling trying to have the same consistency in the field. So what we did is we took the time, and this is something we don't include in our automations. We don't provide the videos for the field, but if you do make the videos, we'll provide up to 5 private landing pages and create an automated online video system for your field staff. So we'll give you the office part, and now the field part, you can give us the videos, and we create an online basically 5 to 6 step online video training series. But what that looked like in my business is we went in and created a video for line trimming, stick edging, blowing, each type of mower, hedge trimming, mulch. Every service we did, we created a video that standardized the process. So before they even got in the field, they were on the phone, a tablet, or a computer in the office and driving an online process. So if you're looking like, how do we compete with the Walmarts or the fast food joints? This is it. And it's a totally turnkey system once you build this out yourself or you have some help from an expert like SimpleGrowth. The day I sold my business, Dylan, similar to yours, the day I signed, I never went back because I literally handed this kind of franchise without franchise fees, this turnkey operation over, and it operated the same way without me because it had consistently before that. So it may seem overwhelming, but what we've done here is built a process where you can plug your own videos in with best practice. And if you, depending on the software program, we actually have the office training already done for you, included in this. So
that's huge.
Yeah. So we're going to create this automated video standardized system for office and field staff. And then the next thing is employment contracts and handbooks. I know those are the things that we always forget about when they get too busy, but these are like the most important things outside of the payroll and tax docs. So what we do is we go in and we automate that process. So once again, what should happen happens without the business owner and manager having to be there every time we have a new hire. And now we have that in the system and we are covered. So if you're using an expert like Jason Cupp and Kincaid building out a handbook, he's going to supply that, but who's responsible to make sure that's actually being filled out and fulfilled? So I know we've got a few more minutes here, Dylan. I know you have some thoughts on that. Sorry, I kind of took over, but this stuff it gets me excited. I mean, this was the evolution of taking my life back from my business because we talked about the sales process last week, right? So when you get that sales machine going and you organize, automate, and dominate, you have an influx of work where you need employees. So we had so much work, we almost went out of business well before the labor shortage because we had so much work and not enough employees. And the idea here is that we needed to create a process because the automation for the sales work. So we took the same process and built a sales pipeline to recruit, train, and onboard employees. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we'll talk about it on a Workout Wednesday, but the next step is now you got 25, 30 employees. How do you stop becoming the babysitter and manage all the reoccurring processes? Dave, man, have a good time at that next job. We will hit you up on this, Dylan. If you want to make a note, Dave Voynia wants to be hit up because it looks like he's ready to organize, automate, and dominate his employee systems with this. So, Dylan, as far as closing on the end of this, we've got that work. Now we need the employees. What else am I missing here, brother? Because I know you've got years and years of experience, 7-figure business, using these automations. Is there something else I missed?
No, I mean, I think you nailed it down really good. I was just chuckling earlier in the fact that I didn't set up the video series portion of this. And it's just going over in my mind now that like how many times I had a little presentation slideshow and I bring the guys into the office, I'd go over the exact same thing over and over and over. That if you just take the time to set up the system, yes, these people still need some training, but that monotonous exact same speech that you're doing for an hour every time you hire a new employee, that gets a little draining if you have someone and they leave 2 days later and you got to do that same little presentation over and over again.
The cool thing is Carlos on our team asked for the video links to the training pages in the automation because we paid our guys on piece rate. So Carlos would get paid straight time if he went over budgeted, but if he beat his budgeted time, if he was budgeted for 10 hours and did it in 8, he'd still get paid for 10. But what he realized, and this is when I realized we had something, it wasn't necessarily, yes, it was buying time back. It resonated. It was good. But when Carlos said, hey, can I get a link to those videos? Because if I beat my budgeted time, even during the training process with a new guy, I get paid the budgeted time and so does a trainee. So Carlos made the guys every morning for the first week watch the videos driving to the first job. And what he did is he cut it down by about 25 to 30% of the learning curve was gone because they went through it once, but he forced them through repetition to watch it again. And that was when I was like, aha, we got something here. This is the golden nugget because now that we've got him in, we've got things going in like, hey, pick up your personal protective equipment at the office on the way in. This is what's expected. Make sure you're wearing steel toe boots. So we're like all the things we traditionally forgot. Hey, your high visibility vest, grab that from the office. It was in the package. But everything was standardized there. And it just made it a systematic system. So no matter who was onboarding that day or not even onboarding, maybe it was office manager that was there, it was the same exact thing. But now you've got crew leaders of like 5 to 10 years, probably 10 years at least. Carlos was with me before we started this. He's asking for videos that he's got the guy on the company iPhone in the truck watching, so he's going to be more efficient so they can make more money. That to me makes sense. Like if your employees are buying into it and they're asking for these videos, that's what you need to do. And you got to think as the millennials continue to take over, they're used to watching videos on their phone or tablets and things like that. So you've got the ability to really double and triple down on the effect in the way they actually like to take things in. Because let's face it, some of the millennials are a little less engaging publicly. Like they are a little bit shyer. But man, if you get them in front of a phone or a TV or a tablet, they're going to gobble up because that's the way they absorb information. So why not teach them the way they're used to absorbing it? And then we get hands-on and we cut that learning curve down by 25 to 30%.
Mike, what would you say to someone that's like, I can barely even get employees to show up to my business? If I put all these hoops, like are these employees is this gonna limit my chances, or what's the end result gonna be?
Yeah, but I mean, right now, like let's face it, the market's tough. Like, but do you want somebody that's going to represent your brand on there just to be a pulse and get to 40 hours a week and damage stuff and just destroy everything you built over the last 10 to 15 years? No. But the problem is if you're not consistently recruiting every day, all day, it's a job, it's a function. I don't care if you automate it or not. You need to do it. And if all your leads or potential applicants are hanging out on Facebook, Indeed, Craigslist, ZipRecruiter, you don't own that list, but you paid for it. You got to get them in your system and nurture them. And when they're ready to go. So maybe you don't hire them, they go somewhere else. Or by the time you get to them, they've already accepted the first offer. Cool, let's reach out to them. Let's make an acquaintance. And when that employer doesn't have everything happening after the hiring process, so they're not making the first impression, they're not following through on what they should do or not making their paycheck on time, you're there and you're sweeping through and grabbing them potentially the next time. So it's not just for the short term, Dylan. We're qualifying for the duration, maybe this year, maybe next year. So the guy who ran my business actually was in my employee funnel for over 2 years.
Yeah. And depending on how bad you need guys and how much available potential money you have for this, like if that great applicant does call you back and say, yeah, I went with someone else, super sorry, I'll keep you in mind in the future. Maybe take it one step further, send them a company hat or something like that, right? Go above and beyond. And geez, if he's not having a great time or she's not having a great time at their job, they're going to be thinking about your company.
You want to stand out, you want to differentiate it. And I think the biggest thing that I can at least say is the culture and it's the alignment. And that's going to be the driving factor. So it costs so much money to get these applicants in. But man, if you screw it up as soon as they get in there and you don't have a process around it, you're back at square one. And let's face it, they talk. And Gen Z right now is 5 to 6 more times likely to do double the research than a millennial right now. And they're going to go on like Glassdoor or Facebook or all the different places, and they are going to share their story. So if you are not nailing it with the first person to do, you may be eliminating an extra 10 or 15% or 20% people down the road that you don't even know because they've destroyed you online and you don't even know it because your onboarding process wasn't there and there was no consistency. So it's not only enough to drive everybody in, but once they're in, you got to hold true to what you're at and do good by them, because more and more with social media and these different review sites, if you aren't holding true to that, you could be seeing compounding effects down the line that you don't even know about. And that was like the biggest thing that saved us is when that competitor way bigger than us came into our parking lot. And I ended up having a good conversation with the owner of the business, and probably $9-10 million a year company at that point. But talking to him, I say, hey, like, I want to know if my guys are in your parking lot. He eventually pulled back, but somebody below him was actually doing that. But I tell you what, this guy was offering the moon, man. And 95% of my guys stayed because of the culture and what we had done for consistency. And if we hadn't done that, I guarantee we would have had a mass exit and probably 60% of our guys. So wow. It's just not the recruiting part, but it's the consistency and the process and systems that is going to keep you solid and stable for the years to come as well. So it's a two-pronged approach.
And if I could kind of finalize this with one question, like if you are having any employee issues, what percentage of you or someone on your team's day is being spent recruiting, onboarding, hiring, making sure that they're having a good first 30, 60, 90 days, just like we do with our customers, right? And if the answer to that is like, oh, we're spending maybe an hour or two a week, well, you've essentially figured out your employee issue right then and there. You're not treating that side of the business like a facet of the business, right? It's an afterthought.
Right. So, and if you don't have the time, whether you work with SimpleGrowth or you do it yourself, you got to automate it because you got to do it nowadays. You can't compete with the big brands unless you do it. But the cool thing is automations, once you've organized it and then you automate it, it levels the playing field. You can go head to head with a Walmart or a fast food chain because it's automated, it's personal, and it happens when it should happen. And it doesn't revolve around you doing it 24/7. So this is leveling the playing field. I've been saying this for 8 or 9 years. We've been automating my business. We can play ball with the big boys and girls of industry by creating an organized system, automating it, and then we can actually go out and dominate and beat them because there's no red tape, there's no bureaucracy, and we can really define and hold true to those core values and the things that we promise in this onboarding system. So, Dylan, I don't know about you, but I think this is the hot topic right now. If you're watching this live and you're like, this sounds great, I don't have time to do it, hit us up at SimpleGrowthSystems.com. Give Dylan a shout. I know he always usually has a cell phone available for a quick text or call. But let us know this is something we're passionate about. If not anything else, take this diagram, use it, and organize your own system, and then automate it and start to pull back and be back in control of the labor game. This is probably the most liberating thing I did in my business. And hopefully it can be the most liberating thing in your business. But if you're interested, hit us up at SimpleGrowthSystems.com, 585-653-7022, or and just ask for Dylan, and Dylan can take you a walk through. And looks like Dave Voynia is ready to take control of his employee situation. So we'll be talking to Dave soon. Can't wait. Hopefully next couple conferences here, we'll see Dave again and catch up after the COVID craziness. So Dylan, can't thank you enough, brother. We'll see you again on next Wednesday, Work On It Wednesday. Any closing thoughts?
No, that all sounds great. Had a blast.
All right, brother. I'll see you next Wednesday. We'll see you live on Facebook, and hit us up at SimpleGrowthSystems.com or give us a call, and Dylan can show you, if you're interested, need some help, how to build this automated system in your business. Totally turnkey with pre-built Spanish and English application and all the documents and things you need outside of the employment contract and handbook. But we've got great resources for people we could refer you to if you haven't had those built out as well. See you again next Wednesday. Work On It Wednesday with the SimpleGrowth team, Mike and Dylan.